So I was at a dinner party some time ago with a group of exceptionally successful young tech entrepreneurs. And as founders, their tech startups and their backstories and their journeys were super interesting. At some point, a biohacker explained the principles of biohacking as improving and manipulating our bodies with the mindset of a hacker. And he went on to explain how biohacking was about optimizing our bodies and maximizing our potential through the use of biology and technology, and that sometimes these benefits are almost immediate. So inspired by the company and in truth fueled also by a few beers, I wondered what would happen if we thought of design in this way. If we approached it with the mindset of a hacker, making only those small corrections needed, those adjustments to optimize our environment and maximize our human potential, and that this could potentially be done quite quickly through the findings of neuroscience and environmental psychology. And almost just like that, the idea of envirohacking was born. So mentioning it in that tech company, it was almost immediately understood and also supported. Outside of that company, however, I could never ever have imagined the positive impact of such a simple, made-up soundbite. That explanation landed for us like Sully on the Hudson. By all accounts, it should have been disastrous, a belly flop. But it turned out to be a miracle. Lots of press, lots of attention, and lots of reward. And it's become our driving USP ever since and penetrated the market for us like nothing's ever done before. So envirohacking in truth is really just our term for the use of all the available neuroaesthetic knowledge and the data so that we can ensure that we hold this front and center and design spaces that impact people in the most positive way possible. So people have, of course, always known that the environment impacts them in all kinds of meaningful ways. The Egyptians, they had color healing temples 3,500 years ago. And Florence Nightingale observed in 1860 in her notes on nursing that greenery and flowers helped to heal patients a lot quicker. However, it wasn't until 1984 that Roger Ulrich proved this scientifically with his findings on the healing time of gallbladder patients post-op. Those facing a garden versus those facing a blank wall healed infinitely faster. And those findings are only 40 years ago. That said, it's only 26 years ago, in 1998, that the term neuroarchitecture, the application of neuroscience within the built space, was first mentioned. So in relative terms, the actual science in design is very new. So whilst many human-centered design drivers in the past were anecdotal, we now have the technology and the scientific backup to begin to understand the exact impact of these spatial and architectural typologies on us. Those that help or harm us, inspire or deflate us, heal us or make us sick. We now know how architecture, the detail around complexity, volumes, acoustics, sounds, shapes, lights, colors, and smell move us to feel more positive or more negative, more joyous or less, more inspired or less, more sociable or less, and can apply all of this knowledge almost robotically to increase the quality of the experience in a space. In fact, most environmental psychologists now agree that it's our environment that contributes most to us reaching our full potential. And by the way, the data around the impact of our environment has become so overwhelming and so irrefutable that many behavioral psychologists and scientists are now in fact calling for it to be, for the built environment to become a matter of public health. And so this knowledge also has far-reaching impact on businesses, in commercial spaces and projects. For example, if people enjoy a space much more, they tend to frequent it more. And if they frequent it more, they tend to spend more. And this, by extension, leads to a far better return on investment for business owners. So by all accounts, this approach made a lot of sense for us. So some of these principles can be applied with almost laser precision, sometimes very fast. Think about our behavior and how it changes in the moment when confronted by a foul smell, screeching noise, or blinding light, or a freezing room. Is instantaneous. So further to that, there are a few good examples that I can maybe just mention that illustrate this point of these environmental triggers and the impacts. So the first one, in a fascinating study around wine tasting, they had 500 participants. They conducted this at the Mainz University in Germany, and they found that ambient lighting impacts people and their wine preferences and also their spending behavior. Wine tasted in red or blue hued light was perceived to be far tastier, and under these conditions people were willing to pay €1 more for a glass of wine. In another study by Anne McCarran and Kevin Tierney, they found that they could in fact manipulate people into drinking more and spending more. They could nudge them just by adjusting music specifically to 88 decibels, made people drink more, drink faster, and spend more. And in a groundbreaking 30-year investigation conducted in the UK starting in the 1970s, an unexpected yet profound link was found between boredom and physical health. Subjects experiencing excessive boredom over this time were found to have far higher levels of cortisol, that stress hormone, which over time significantly increases the risk of stroke, heart disease, and diabetes, and so forth. And this discovery highlights the critical role of our built environment in shaping not only our mental states, but also our physical well-being and our longevity. And another example, research done by Bach, Chen and Burroughs in 1996, revealed that even subtle environmental clues and cues will prime people to adopt behaviors and physical patterns of others. Students were exposed to an office environment designed to evoke associations with age and frailty. And this was achieved by subtle clues like photographs of elderly individuals on the walls and words like grey, infirm, weak, old, and tired included on posters and also in conversation. And the result was that these aging triggers primed the students to walk out noticeably more slowly and less erect than when they had walked in. And just a few other maybe high-level examples, just mentioning them briefly. We know that greenery and noticeable mirrors in a space tend to reduce crime. We know that a noticeable briefcase in a room increases competitive behavior. We know that round shapes in an art gallery makes people behave noticeably more sociable and considerate versus sharp-edged art that triggers visitors to behave noticeably more aggressive and self-centered. We know that high ceilings increase creative thinking, conversely low ceilings analytical thinking, and that holding a hot drink even just briefly prior to social engagement triggers us to behave more sociably and compassionately, and conversely holding a cold beverage triggers us to behave more self-centeredly. There are thousands of these examples. But for the purpose of this talk, I just really wanted to mention those and illustrate this approach with the example of two projects. The first one, briefly, on the one side, is the strategic repositioning of an international brand called Coffee Club, and on the other side, completely different spend, a very high-end and exclusive restaurant called Safari. Both are highly successful, massively popular, and are yielding outside returns for the owners based largely on the principles that we applied quite consciously in this case. So a quick background, the Coffee Club had the first store opening in 1989. 360 stores later, they had lost their way a little bit. Some primary turnaround drivers that we presented, that we said we wanted to apply, first of all, was visual identity. We know from behavioral studies done by Professor Chul Soo Kim in various coffee shop brands, including Starbucks actually, that our 5 primary senses are not all equal. That our visual is the strongest and accounts for 45 to 46%. In many cases, taste is the weakest and accounts for only about sometimes 16%, highest 33%, depending on the environment. We knew that we needed to appeal emotionally to that existing bullseye clientele visually first. It was a 70-year-old male with a walking and a hearing aid. And as someone described it, it looked like heaven's departure lounge. Without alienating them, we had to find a way to appeal to a much younger generation as well. As the brand was founded in the 80s, the solution was really right in front of us. An 80s inspired visual position. The boomers and Gen Xers, they had fond memories of that era, and we can thank pop culture in movies and so forth that reruns that into fashion in movies and apparel, and for Gen Zs and millennials to find the kind of era aspirational. And then our sense of significance and the importance of agency. In line with this thinking, we developed a bunch of choices, 3 unique colors, a bunch of furniture in different colors, a lot of art in different types and expressions. And we gave the franchisees the choice to kind of personalize the space to their identity, something that a brand hardly ever does. And this created massive trust, buy-in, created massive boost of energy, brand loyalty, and that rubbed off on people and people working there and visitors, of course, very successfully. And then furniture, this was suggested in line with the overall market behavior and the principles that the weight and texture of a chair informs the length of a stay. Think about fast food, for example. The chair is light, probably plastic or aluminium, versus fine dining, there's probably wood, far heavier, upholstered, and so forth. This category, however, is in the middle of those two, a sector referred to as fast casual, and the chair had to inform a length of stay of around 30-35 minutes. And it also had to allow for older people to be able to push themselves in and out of these chairs, and hence we needed to find one of the ranges to have upturned round sides for that behavior. Referencing back to colors, we are hard-coded to respond visually to color first. Healthy food colors have primed us over thousands of years to be attracted to certain colors more than others. The colors we chose here are quite primary and inviting, so that they can call out the brand at a distance. At some point we thought maybe too primary, but for the market it worked exceptionally well. We looked at a host of other small but significant hard-coded response systems. Light temperature, for example, it's now 2700 Kelvin, down from 3500 Kelvin. And this light temperature has a dramatic positive effect on sociability and decreasing inhibitions. It's the temperature of a setting sun, our most sociable time. Think about the evenings when the sun sets. It's the time when animals come out to play. And finally, we looked at other barriers for conversion, those conflicting needs of all the stakeholders. Landlords, they want the latest and the newest, but not the disruption. Franchise partners also don't want disruption, but they want to spend as little as possible for the biggest return. And franchisors, they want the most amount of stores with the highest turnover, as the model is royalty based. So to align all these conflicting needs, we designed a simple yet very effective set of high impact, low cost interventions that could be done at night over no more than 7 days. Paint, pre-made art as mentioned for the walls, massive catalogue for them to choose from, simple but highly effective lighting, pendants that are quite cost effective and cheap, that just bring the light down, new signage, 3 color palettes as mentioned, that the patron, informed really by the patrons and the franchise partners, and then the set of furniture that they could all choose from that could just be dropped down at the last minute. The result of this average double-digit sustained increased growth over 34 stores that we completed last year, driven primarily by a massive increase in footfall and a different crowd, a much younger additional crowd. We are doing another 80 this year and adjusted them slightly on the base of these learnings. But in the end, the learnings from this was for us that no matter our preferences, what we like, what we don't like, it has nothing to do with commercial design. The numbers are really all that matters. The second example is a massively successful restaurant positioned in the undercroft of a city skyscraper in Sydney. It has since also spawned a new TV docu-film entitled Designing for Dining, where we take visitors on a journey from inception to completion, incorporating all of these predictive and desired human behaviors through the lens of neuroscience and behavioral psychologists. The biggest challenge was the unusual nature of the site. It's the only restaurant in this category where 80% of the seating is external, with a lot of cold wind and rain driven diagonally through the side of the space because of the high buildings on the street that effectively form a wind tunnel. So with that said, we needed to find unusual ways to make people emotionally and physically comfortable. And the biggest intervention there was to counter this problem by creating a series of very high 4.3 meter pods that flank the outside perimeter of the space, acting as a wind and rain shield in effect. And on the inside, a cozy 6-seater environment for people. They were incredibly difficult to get right, simple on the outside, but we built a whole bunch of prototypes to sit in and feel, to kind of feel that they were acoustically sound, not claustrophobic, that they were welcoming. And we did that with the help of a fellow South African, Pierre, and cut out holes in it, like windows, and nudged it ever so slightly until finally we said, this feels great, let's rock and roll, and built 10 more. So for the site, we spend just in sound and music what we spend on average for a complete conversion of a coffee club. So an expensive build. So some examples of how we kind of hack the space, I would say, is firstly the volume, the importance of volume or sometimes lack of. The existing volume to the slab of the site that we occupied is 5 stories, so we had to find a way of kind of filtering that height, and we did that with the help of trees, 5 trees in total, to bring the height down. And the benefit of that is as well that we're all drawn to nature. Whether that nature is in fact real or not, it has a very similar and calming effect. Different in commercial spaces like this for homes. By the way, the trees are not real. They are copies of Vuuren or the acacia likenesses. And again, the chair, not only visual, the importance of the weight and texture of the chair, as mentioned, they inform the length of the stay. This chair needed to be far heavier, but not too heavy. Too heavy, people would stay too long. Too light, too little. And the chairs are in that kind of sweet spot for a 45 to 70 minute visit. And then the bench seating is, as the environment is mainly outside, we installed auto industry seat heaters inside the bench seat so that patrons can regulate the temperature of the seat themselves, increasing their sense of significance and belonging, of course, with a sense of comfort, the ability to make that choice, kind of agency. And in the table inside, as the pods and seating were quite deep, we cut out a notch, which you will see, to be able to, or allow people to reach across to greet or to service. It also formed the backing for the name of every hut that we created. You'll see different hut names on the edge of that. And then the lighting, again at 2700 kelvins, it's akin to a candlelight, and it just makes people lean in more, be more sociable, and less inhibitions. And then music and sound. The speakers actually hang from the trees everywhere, not very obvious, but they're there. That allows for a very good spread of sound. But then the bass speakers we spread them in the bench seats. So you hear the music, but subconsciously you feel it too. It's not a conscious thing, but it creates for quite a different experience. And then we have things like chirping of birds that are mixed in the music, in the entrance way and so forth. Science shows us that sound of nature is an effective way to relieve stress and increase a positive mood state. So we don't know all the contributors, but we put them in. It sounds strange, but it works pretty well. And then smell, open kitchens are there for theatre, of course, but more importantly for the smell. And the mechanics of taste is very interesting. Most of what we perceive as flavor actually comes from the aroma of food. And grilled meat is super effective in transferring that. It's very primal and effective way in activating our saliva ducts and awaken our taste buds and our gastric acids, and increases in the end massively our appetites. So taking care of all these behavioral triggers first and foremost, and putting these neuroscience findings at the heart of the design, it contributed to a restaurant that has a 3-month waiting list, a turnover almost double of what they expected. And by the way, we've done 10 of these meat and wines in the group, and this is the first one we based completely on neuroscience, and it's by far the most effective and the most profitable restaurant that I've done in my 35 years. And I sense that we arrived here by putting people first and design second. So in closing, our approach is far from new, of course. As mentioned, it's based on the principles of design thinking, perhaps, neuroarchitecture, human-centered design, and in truth dates back to Egyptians, as we mentioned, 3,500 years ago, perhaps earlier. In truth, we only gave it our unique soundbite of envirohacking and made an effort of discovering or uncovering all the science-backed behavioral triggers to lead our entire design approach. Together with this approach, we changed our name from Design Partnership to COOOP, opened an office in Dubai and in Putten, Netherlands, and we have not looked back since. It's unlocked an amazing new client base for us, with big returns for them and in truth also for us. And it's been a really great journey, interesting journey, an exciting journey for us to date. So finally, I wish I was there now to have a discussion around this and to answer questions that you may have. But failing that, if you want to reach out or discuss this more, please mail me or phone me on +61 404 328 828. My email is Callie at coopc.co. Thank you for spending all this time with me. I will be in South Africa from the 15th to the 30th of March. So if anyone wants to have a quick chat or reach out or go for a coffee, it will be fantastic. Thank you.